Hey everyone! When you're prepping for the UGC NET exam, you know logical reasoning can be a total game changer, right? So, today we're going to absolutely nail the basics, taking our cues directly from Ankit Sharma's fantastic book, Paper 1 Unlocked. So, when you're deep in your UGC NET studies, these three words argument, premise, conclusion just keep popping up everywhere. And while, let's be honest, they can get a little confusing, don't worry because we are going to crack this code in the next few minutes. I promise you that by the end of this, these concepts are going to be crystal clear. So, let's get to it. All right, let's start with the most fundamental building block of them all. Because in the entire world of logic, everything starts right here with what we call a statement or sometimes a proposition. Now, the idea of a statement is actually super simple. It's just a sentence that can either be true or it can be false with absolutely no middle ground or gray area. So I want you to think of it just like a light switch, which is either on or it's off. Let's make this really clear with an example. If I say it is raining outside, you can look out the window and tell me if that's true or false, right? But contrast that with please close the window, which is a command that can't be true or false, or a question like where's the coffee shop? Because neither of those have a truth value. You know what? This point is so important that this exact line, truth and falsity are attributes of propositions, has shown up in the exam word for word. So, always remember in logic that whenever we talk about something being true or false, we are always talking about a statement or a proposition. Okay, great. So now that we've got the building blocks, the statements down, let's see what happens when we start putting those blocks together to build the very core of all logical reasoning and argument. Now, every single argument has two main parts, the premise and the conclusion. So to put it in really simple terms, the premise is the reason or the evidence that you're giving, it's the why, and the conclusion is the main point you're trying to prove, which is the what. This classic example is going to make everything click into place, so check this out. Our first premise is all men are mortal. Our second premise is Socrates is a man. And when you put those two ideas together, the logical result is our conclusion. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. See how that works, where the premises combine to support and prove the conclusion? So that right there is the definition of an argument. It's simply a group of statements where some of them, which we call the premises, are intended to support or prove a final statement, which we call the conclusion. Now listen up because this is where a lot of people make a very common mistake and I want you to avoid it. Remember that statements are true or false, but arguments are not true or false. Arguments are either valid or invalid. What that means is we're judging the structure of the logic, not the content. And since this is a huge point that comes up directly in the exam, you have to log this one in. Speaking of that, this brings us to another concept that really trips students up, and you guessed it, it's a favorite for exam questions, which is what exactly is the difference between an argument and an explanation. It all comes down to the intention. Look at the first example. Every law is an evil, where the author is clearly trying to prove something to you or convince you of a point, which is why it's an argument. Now look at the second one. I ate because I was hungry, and see that I'm not trying to prove anything there. I'm just telling you the reason why something happened, which makes it an explanation. They both might use the word because, but their purpose is completely different, and you can bet this distinction is super important for the exam. Okay, that's enough theory for now. So let's get to the fun part where it's time to see how we can apply all this knowledge to actual UGC NET questions. All right, here we go with a real question from the exam. Read it carefully, and since the author is clearly trying to convince you of something, take a second and think about what the main point, the ultimate conclusion of this entire passage is. Let's break it down together. The main point that's being argued for here is that socialized medicine is not recommended, which is our conclusion. And the reason for it is right after that helpful indicator word because, stating it would reduce the quality of medical care, which is our premise. Let's try one more. It's the same deal where you just need to figure out the speaker's main point and then identify the reason they're giving to support that point. So go for it. The big claim being made here is that animals have souls. That's our conclusion. And the evidence given for this claim, the premise is that the lowest animal is a lot nicer and kinder than most human beings. It's pretty straightforward once you know what to look for, right? Because you just always have to find the main point and the support for it. Alright, let's do a super quick final revision of all the key points we learned today just to make sure they stick with you for your exam, and you might even want to take a screenshot of this slide for later. Let's go through them one last time. First, statements or propositions are always true or false. Second, arguments are valid or invalid. Third, a premise is the reason or the why. Fourth, a conclusion is the point to be proved or the what. And finally, I ate because I was hungry is an explanation, while every law is an evil is an argument. Remember, every single one of these points has been on the exam, so there you have it. You've just cracked the absolute basics of logical reasoning. Thanks for being here, and if you're finding these tips helpful, a like and subscribe goes a long way. But if you're wondering how to apply this blurting strategy to every single topic without doing all the manual setup yourself, you might want to take a look at the Nerd School app, where we've already converted the entire curriculum into this active recall format. Imagine learning with interactive last-minute revision tools that test you as you go. It's all there waiting for you on the other side. We have quietly completed 100% of the syllabus, which is pretty rare to find right now, packing in over 10,000 explained PYQs, full PDF notes, and over 100,000 revision points to keep you sharp. There is no pressure, so feel free to jump into the 3-day free trial just to explore the resources and see if this comprehensive approach is the missing piece in your prep.